We are up in the top of Tokyo Skytree Tower, the tallest tower in the world, looking down on the largest city in the world, a city of nearly 40 million people, looking down on skyscrapers like they're little toys. To get a sense of just how massive Tokyo is, compare it to other massive cities. New York, Beijing, Mumbai, Cairo, Mexico City, or Sao Paulo. It's the size of any two of those combined. Only Shanghai and Delhi can compare, and they're 10 million and 6 million short. But it's not just massive. It's organized, civilized, and even peaceful. I was constantly amazed by just how well things work together, and how well the people work together. This was an absolutely fascinating trip. Let's take just a moment to see how we got here. So the plan was to fly from Dallas to Tokyo, and while there we were going to spend about 5 weeks in Japan and South Korea. We started in Tokyo and spent some time there, and then took a train down to Atami, which we used as a base to do Hakone and Mount Fuji. Then we took a train to Kyoto, spent some time there, and did a day trip down to Nara. Then moved down to Osaka and did a day trip to Himeji. From Osaka, we flew to Seoul and did a day trip to the DMZ. And after spending time in Seoul, we took a KTX down to Busan, from which we did a day trip to Gyeongju. Then from Busan, we flew back to Tokyo, spent more time in Tokyo, and we did a train up to Nagano and back, and a day trip up to Nikko. But today we're talking about Tokyo. You can definitely get lost in focusing on the scale. It's mind-blowing when you start to look at it. From atop that tower, it goes on in every direction as far as you can see. But because of that, you could also be forgiven for thinking it's just a mind-numbing, surreal kaleidoscope of dystopian chaos and noise. It can be if you want it to be. But it can also be a serene and peaceful, quiet oasis. There are so many Buddhist temples, Shinto shrines, and Japanese gardens in Tokyo. And there are several forests surrounding some of them, so that even right in the very middle of the city, you feel like you're in the countryside. London has its parks, and I've always loved them, but they pale in comparison to Tokyo's ability to remove you from the surrounding city and place you at peace. And even when you are around the masses, you don't usually feel pressured, hurried, harassed, and uptight like you would in virtually any other city. The Japanese people value harmony and civilized behavior, such that you always feel like everything is under control. And that's generally because it is. There's no real risk of getting robbed or attacked. After a while, you just stop thinking like you do in every other city. You aren't worried about where the next hand is approaching from, or where your bag is slung, or what this guy is up to standing nearby. That's because everywhere you go, the person most likely to disrupt the peace is you. And everything is so clean, yet there are no trash cans anywhere. I actually took a picture of one when we saw it because it was such a novelty. You carry with you a tiny bag, and any garbage you accumulate during the day, you put in your little bag and carry along until you get home, and then you throw it away. Can you imagine asking people to do that in the US? Any garbage you do see on the street, you can guarantee is from a foreigner. Speaking of things you couldn't do in the US, when you go into a busy cafe and need to grab a table, do you know how you reserve the table? You go drop your $1,300 iPhone on it and walk away. The table is now yours. You can leave and come back in an hour and the phone will still be there. No one will touch it. And the table will be yours. It's reserved. And at those cafes I mentioned, we'd see luggage out front up against the building on the street. It's just outside the door on the street and no one touches it. The people go in and eat, and after they're done, they go out and it's still there. It'd be gone in 20 seconds in New York. By the way, these are called Emma, and you write a wish on one side of a piece of wood, or in this case, in between the two. And then every so often the monks come, take them all down and burn them, and your wish goes up into heaven, and it's supposed to grant the wish. Animal cafes are really popular in Tokyo. There are cafes for cats, dogs, rabbits, hedgehogs, reptiles, owls, and other birds. Since it's such a Tokyo thing to do, we decided to go to one. And we decided to check out an owl cafe. It was really cool. A trainer taught you how to behave around them first, and then you go in and there are about 30 different owls. These things are powerful, but if you're calm, they're calm. It was one of the weird Tokyo things that just turned out to be a very cool experience that you'd probably never do otherwise. But it's Tokyo, so hey. Another really interesting place we went to was the teamLab Borderless. It's a digital art museum. It's not really a museum though, it's more of an interactive display. There are about 50 different rooms with lights projected on the walls that move and flow from one room to the other. There's no map, there's no guide, there's no specific way to go. It's all just open and a big confusing mess. But it was just really cool. The floors, the ceilings, the walls all just moved with light. Some of them were really disorienting. Some of them were just really pretty. Some of them were interactive. It was just very trippy, obviously, but it was just a cool experience. It was one of those things that you could have spent a lot more time there, but we didn't. But I still feel like we got a really good handle on things and just had a very cool experience. They were all different. Every little area was very different and very well done. It was just a very cool experience. The interactivity was the cool part. You touch something on the wall and it would transform into something else. I have no idea how they do that, because then this would turn into some big display that would go to another room. You touch an animal and it moves or runs away. I have no idea still how they did it. These weren't screens, they were just walls and things were projected, but I have no idea how the system knows where somebody's touching and how to integrate 50 different displays all at the same time and have them coordinate or work together. It was just fascinating. You feel like a little kid. One thing I really appreciated was being able to walk around and not just feel safe, but not be harassed by touts and people trying to sell you stuff or scam you all the time. People left you alone. And speaking of alone, we saw kids walking around by themselves, 8, 9, 10 years old, just going about their business. In metro stations, knowing where they're going, buying food. I don't know how common I'd say it was, but in the US, you'd be looking for the police and arresting their parents. But they were just navigating along like it was nothing. And navigating is an art in Tokyo. I like to joke that we only have 2 dimensions in Texas because at least where I live, it's pretty flat. It's definitely not the case in Tokyo, because there are layers upon layers of passageways. And they're not just hallways, they're massive shopping centers. If you're looking at a street map, that's fine, but just know that there are maybe 3, 4, or 5 layers underground of shopping centers, passageways, avenues, restaurants, bars, and food courts that aren't on your Google map. The underground cities just went on seemingly forever. We'd be exploring some vast underground metropolis and turn to find a passageway to another whole direction or section that went on for half a mile or more. Just hundreds of stores of every variety. In one of these mazes underground in Shibuya was a food court that rivaled the food court at Harrods. It was every bit as fancy and large. And it was just an underground shopping center of a metro station. And just when you get used to the idea that underground is a whole new city, you look up and it's the same thing above you. Layers upon layers of interconnected walkways, rooftop restaurants, and recreation areas. Mass transit makes it possible for you to get to all these areas of Tokyo, but you are gonna walk a lot. We walked so much, and it generally didn't feel like you were wasting your time and just walking from one place to another. There was always stuff to look at, and you were always doing something. But you walk a lot. I did 19,000 steps in one day and didn't even realize it. We took mass transit a lot. It's so convenient and easy. There were over 1,000 stations in the core Tokyo area and over 2,200 in the greater Tokyo area, which reaches into the neighboring prefectures. It may seem confusing, especially if you're not used to reading a subway map or navigating mass transit. But if you are, or if you just spend a little time looking into it, it makes everything accessible. It seems like you can generally get anywhere in about 30 minutes. We used a Suica card, which we loaded onto our phones before we got there and just put money on it electronically. It was good for all metros and local trains, and even good in convenience stores. It makes things really easy. You just tap your phone as you walk through the turnstile. You don't even have to open an app if you set it as a transit card in your iPhone settings. Another little piece of useful tech was Google Translate. You can't type in kanji to a translator because you don't know how to create the characters. But you can open Translate and use your phone to look at words and it will translate them for you. This was really helpful. Because Japanese is so alien to us. It's been a really long time since I felt that disjointed and unable to communicate. People always ask you when you don't speak the language, how did you get by? It's just really never a big issue. Well, it was in Japan, and it was in Korea to a lesser extent, but Japan more so. The people do not speak English, and even the ones that do don't speak it well. So it was a constant struggle to communicate. But, that's part of the fun. That was one of the things that we actually enjoyed, even though it could have been frustrating. It was just one more weird aspect of Japan. And weird is, I think, my favorite part of Japan. Speaking of weird, Nate has a thing for chili dogs, so we went looking for them and found this place called COD that had the best chili dogs. Every time you think you have a handle on how things work or what's what, you get this curveball that just makes you say, what? Or why? They're just different. Sometimes you don't feel like you're in a foreign country as much as an alien planet. I mean, they're all human, but the world they live in is sometimes so different that you don't really understand what you're saying. Anime is a good example of that. I had tried to explain before we got there how pervasive anime is to Japanese culture to Nate, and he just couldn't picture it, didn't get it. But once we got there, he saw that it is everything and it is everywhere. And it's such a conservative country where no one wants to be seen as different, yet you'll see people walking around in wild costumes. Well, hold up, back up. This girl here is wearing a Tokyo Manji gang outfit. That's a gang outfit from a very popular anime. Anime is one of the things that has crossed over into the West. And I get it. It's entertaining. It's different and it's weird, but it's very Japanese, but it's entertaining. A lot of things just don't make any sense. And you just have to laugh at them. And it's one of the things I really liked about Japan. You just don't understand it. I mean, do you really need a Hello Kitty storage unit? And sometimes the translations make no sense at all. I promise you, these things do not mean what they appear to mean. Sometimes you're at a loss for what they're trying to say. Sometimes it's just cultural and aimed at Westerners. Sometimes it's aimed at the Chinese. And they look at all Westerners in horror when they ask you what's the most interesting thing you found about Japan, and everyone tells them, yeah, your toilets are amazing. They always get the same response, but they can never believe it. They're living in the future, yet they're so archaic. And in a culture where nobody wants to be different, somehow they're still trying new things. Dichotomy is the word that comes to mind. And I love it.